Hello everyone, welcome to today's lesson on factoring ax squared plus bx plus c. So this is different from last time's lesson because the only thing we're adding here is now a number in front of the x squared. Right, so from our last lesson, we knew that if we see a number or a negative sign in front of the x squared, right, we can just take out the common factor. Right, just so we're just working with x squared by itself. Right, but oftentimes it's not the case. We cannot take out a common factor. So we just have to factor it. But luckily, all the process is relatively the same. Right, so this is one reason why the area model is super useful is because this still applies to this format as well. So once again, we set up our little area model matrix here. Once again, we know for sure that on both ends of those matrices, we have 2x squared here and then 9 here. Right, and same as before, those two will multiply to 18x squared, right, which means that those two right here must also multiply to 18x squared. But they also must add to 9x. So once again, this times this is 18x squared, while this plus this is 9x. Here, that should be blue here. Okay, now just fill it in, right? We've got perhaps 1 times 18, or x times 18x, but they add up to 19, so that's not it. 2x plus 9x, they multiply to 18, but add up to 11, so that's not it. And of course, our last option is 3x times 6x is 18x squared. But then when we add it up, we get to 9x. So once again, 3x, 6x. Okay, and now, last step as always, find out what's all over here. All right. We know for sure that this times this is 2x squared. So the only way for it to happen is x times 2x. Okay? And then from here, we realize that, oh, hold on a second. Right, from here, we actually have to multiply this and that in order to get to 3x. Right? However, this isn't really possible, right? Of course, we can do a fraction. It's going to be 3 over 2. Right? But frankly, that's too much work. We don't want to work with fractions too much. Right? So what we can do here is actually swap those around. Because then from here, now it's easy for us to deal with, right? We have an x here, multiplied by something, guess it's 3x, which is positive 3. And then here, right, we got 6x, right? So 2x times something gets us 6x, which again is 3. And we can double check that right here. 3 times 3 gets us 9. Which means that to factor this guy, two x plus 3, and then x plus 3. Okay, and then we're done. Okay, so that's area model, same as before. Okay, so next is the guess and check. This is my personal favorite one. I use this for pretty much all the factoring things I do, but it is very, very hard to explain. Alright, so I'm going to try my best to explain this. Alright, so what we want to do is, right, so that's our polynomial in question here. Alright, so now we split it up into 3 parts. The first part is our first term here. So this has to be a times b. Okay? So a times b is just 2 numbers I multiply to 2x. And then the last one, the last term here is c times d. So 2 numbers that multiply to 9. Okay? So far so good? So a and b is 2 numbers that multiply to 2x squared. C and D are 2 numbers that multiply to 9. And now the last one, the middle number, is A times the D plus B times the C. Okay, so again, this is a little complicated, right? So the first number here of this factor, so those two numbers here added up, or sorry, those two numbers multiplied together, we add that to those two numbers here multiplied together. But then we get this middle number. Okay, so another way to visualize this is to put it in a little grid. Okay, so honestly, on this side, this is the factors of the first term. And then those two right here are the factors of the constant. Or I should do third term here, because it's not always a constant there. Okay? And then we're saying that this here times this added to this times this equals to our middle term here. Okay, so now we just have to guess and check to find every single configuration. Right, so a possible configuration could be x and 2x, right? That's our first term. And then we can do 1 and 9. Right, that's one possible configuration, right? But right here, we have 9x plus 2x, right? This is multiplied diagonally is 9x. This multiplied diagonally is 2x. This added up is 11x, which is not it. Okay, we can flip it around. How about 9 and 1? Okay, we got x and then 18x. Right, got x here. 2x times 9 is 18x. Still not it, because that adds us to 19. And then we keep trying. x2x. Okay, how about 3 and 3? Right, that's also factors of 9. 3x, 6x. Right, and we notice here, oh, look at that. That adds up to 9x. So this is the right configuration. Right, this one right here, that's the right configuration. And then from here, we write our answers horizontally. So our answer we write it horizontally. So we have x, right, x plus 3, and then 2x plus 3. Okay, and that's it. So that's how we do the guess and check method. Like I said, this is the method I use all the time to meet the fastest. But I've explained this so many times, I still don't know how to explain it properly. So I hope that is somewhat clear. Okay, so once again, the A, B here are any two factors of the first term. C, D are any two factors of the second term. And then we have to multiply it diagonally and add it up to check if it equals to the middle term. We'll look for the configuration that meets all those requirements, right? So x times 2x is the first term. 3 times 3 is the second term. This times this diagonally is 3x. This times this diagonally is 6x. This added up is the middle term. Once we find the right configuration, we write it horizontally like this. So it becomes x plus 3 to x plus 3. Okay, but if that's not too... What's what? If this is still a little confusing to you, we got a third method, which is decomposition. Right, so there are 3 ways to go about factoring. Right, as you can probably imagine, factoring is a really important skill to learn in polynomials, in math. Right, because, again, factoring is a way for us mathematicians to make big numbers into smaller, more easily digestible chunks. Okay? So as decomposition, what we want to do is to multiply the first and the third term. Right, and that multiplies to 18x squared. And then from there, we find factors of 18x squared, or more specifically 18. Right, so once again, just like our last lesson, we list out all the factors. Of course, not forgetting about the negatives. And as you can imagine, what's our next step, right? We find the factors, well, the two numbers that multiply to 18, but add up to 9, which in this case is this one. Right? They multiply to 18, but add up to 9. I'm going to do a different color here, just so it's less confusing. Oops. To add to this 9x right here. Okay, and then from there, we decompose it. Right? So we decompose the 9x into 3x and 6x. Right? So all we're doing here is breaking this 9x into 3x and 6x, right? Because those are two things that multiply to 18. And then from there, we do our grouping, right? So we learned that 2 lessons ago, where we grouped them into 2 groups. Okay, remember to watch out for negative signs if this happens. We can factor out an x, and then factor out a 3 from the second group. Okay, and then we can further factor out the common term of 2x plus 3. Okay, and then that's our decomposition. Alright, so technically all three methods are literally trying to figure out what numbers multiply together, right, to get to the last number here, and what numbers add up to the middle one here. Okay, so that's all three methods that we can use. Of course, here's some time to practice. Okay, so once again, since the method I like is the guess and check crisscross, I'll be using that, but I'll also do the decomposition as well. But of course, I'll also left enough room for the area model. Well, you can use multiple methods if you want, but pick the one that you like the most. So with decompose, or with the guess and check, the two factors here that multiply to 2 are 1 and 2. And the two factors that multiply to 12 is 3 and 4. Right? But here I notice here 1 times 4 plus 2 times, so 1 times 4 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6. That does not equal to 11. Okay, so we gotta check something else. How about 4 and 3? Right? And that works, right? 1 times 3 is 3, 2 times 4 is 8, add up to 11. Right? After that, I write the answer horizontally. X plus 4, 2x plus 3. Probably should have actually put the x here as well, so it's not confusing. Nope, not x. Oops, sorry, I'm so used to doing x. It's a here. That's the variable we're working with. Okay. Of course, decomposition. Alright. Those two multiply to 24. So we go on factors of 24 that add up to 11. Right? So which is 3 and 8. Plus 3 plus 8. Factor out the a from the first two. Factor out the 4 from the second two. Factor out everything. Actually, I already have the answer up here. Right, factor out everything. Right, 2a plus 3 and then a plus 4. Okay, next one. Factors of 9. In this case, we can do 1 and 9, and then negative 8. Right, we could do 1 and negative 8. Right, but unfortunately, that's negative 8 plus 9, which is positive 1. That's not 21. Okay, let's check negative 1 and 8. Negative 9 plus 8, still not it. We can check 3 and negative, oh, not 3 and negative 7. 2 and negative 4. Alright, so that's negative 4 plus 18, which is 14. That's not it. Negative 2 plus 4. Negative 18 plus 4, not it. Okay, none of those work, so let's try another factor of 9. How about 3 and 3? We can check 1 and negative 8. right? Which this was correct, right? Negative 3 plus 24 is 21. Write it horizontally. Or I can use decomposition. 9 times 8 is negative 72. So two factors of negative 72, but add up to 21, which is 7 and 24. Factor out the 3b from the first set. Factor out the 8 in the second set. Right, factor out the 3b minus 1, and then we have 3b plus a left over. Okay, 8, 1, 3, 1, 8, 1, 3. Does this work? That's 1 times 3, 1 times 8 is 8, 3 plus 8 is 11, not it. How about 3, 1? That looks a little too big, right? 1 times 1 is 1, 3 times 8 is 24, too big. Okay, check different factors. How about this one? All right, 2 and 3 is 6, plus 4 is 10, that's perfect. Or sorry, 2c, 4c. So we write the answer horizontally. Right, 2c plus 1, 4c plus 3. Decomposition. 8 times 3 is 24. 2 factors of 24 that add up to 10. Right? Which is 4 and 6. Take out the 4c from the first clump. Take out the 3. Right? Factor out the 2c plus 1. Well, left was 4c and 3. Okay. 10. 1 and 10. 1 and 3. In this case, we notice here that the middle number is negative. So, our two factors here. Right, two factors must be some sort of negative. Negative 10 and negative 3. Or negative 10 plus negative 3 is negative 13. That's not it. Flip it around. Negative 30 plus negative 1. That's negative 31. That's not it. Okay, so those two factors are not right. Let's check 2 and 5. Negative 1, negative 3. It's negative 6 and negative 5. That's negative 11. That's not it. So it must be negative 3 and 1. Negative 2 and negative 15. That's negative 17. Okay, decomposition. Factors of 10 times 3, so 30. Factors of 30 that add up to negative 17. Right? Negative 17, not positive. So, we can have negative 2 and negative 15, right? They multiply to positive 30, but add up to negative 17. Right? Make sure it's not positive, right? Those multiply to 30, but add up to positive 17. Okay, first clump, we take out a 2d. Second clump, be very careful here of this negative sign. Right, well, you can take out a negative 3. I always make sure to take out negatives. Alright, so be careful about negative signs here. Right, because you can think of our grouping here. We group those together. And then when we group these other two together, right, we take out a negative sign. Right, but whenever we take out a negative sign into our brackets, we gotta flip this sign here, right? This plus becomes a minus 3. And we take out a 3 because they're both divisible by 3. Okay, how about here? Alright, so now that we learned this method, we actually don't really care about the negative signs in front anymore. Alright, but we can always just take this negative out. Just so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, from here. two factors of 1 and 2, so it has to be e and 2e. Okay, how about 118? How about negative 1 and 18? That's negative 2 plus 18 is 16. That's not it. How about this? Negative 18 plus 2, negative 16. Not it. Right, negative 6 plus 6, that's 0, not it. Okay, how about this? Negative, oh wait, hold on a second. Yeah. Negative 6. Yeah, negative 6 and 6, that's also 0, not it. Right, but we can switch them around and check. Right, but right here, 3 and negative 12, it's negative 9. Okay, so that works. So this becomes e minus 6, and then 2e plus 3. Remember the negative sign in front. Okay, decomposition. 2 times 18 is 36. So negative 36. Right, so 2 factors of negative 36 that add up to 9. Right, so we got negative 12 and 3. Right, that add up to negative 9. Okay, and then from there, first part we can take out a negative 2, e, get e plus 6, and then we take out a 3, oh, e plus 6. Okay, and then from here, right, we can see those are a little slightly different, right? So then this becomes e plus 6, and then negative e plus 3. Okay, but what we notice here is that, that's why I did it wrong. I was trying to talk it up, but I realized that I was just being delusional. Oh, interesting. Here, let's see. What did I do wrong here? Okay, hold on. Let's see. I thought I got it, but the more I did it, the more I looked wrong. Okay. So we have this right. Oh, I see. I accidentally added a negative here. I confused myself. Because we were just working with this right here. We took the negative sign out already. Okay, there we go. Oh, look it up. We got it. Take out a 2e, take out a 3. There we go. Okay, that's why I was off. Let's factor out the e minus 6. 2e plus 3. Right, remember, we have the negative sign in front as well. Last one. Or second last one, I guess. Long lesson here. Does that work? Nope, that does not work. Because that's 4 and 9, that's 13. 36 plus 1 is 37, that's not it. Too big. How about 2 and 2? 18 plus 2 is 20, not it. Okay, check different factors. 1 and 4. Oh, look at that. 12 plus 3 is 15. Good. So 3f plus 1, 3f plus 4. We got decomp. Okay, from the decomp, we got, let's see, that and that. So we have 3 and, we got 36 again. We have a lot of 36s here today. Alright, so those multiply to 36. Factor of 36 that add up to 15, which is 3 and 12. Factor out the 3f. Factor out the 4. Okay, and then we got that. Factor those guys out to get that. 3f and 4. We got that. Okay. Last one. So right here, right, of course we can just work with this. We can just take out an x. But we notice here that, once again, we can always take out common factors to make our works easier. Right, so we can take out a x for sure, and we can also take out a 2. Right? All those are divisible by 2. And we have an x we can take out. So you got 4x squared minus 5x minus 6. Okay, from there. 1 and 4. Let's check 2 and 3. How about negative 2? Oh, that's fine. Let's try. 4 times negative 2, and then 1 plus 3. For x plus 3, good. Okay, there we go. Okay, of course, decomp. 4 times negative 6 is negative 24. 2 factors add up to negative 5. Right, add up to negative 5. So we got 8 and 3. Factor out this, factor out the 3. Okay, oh, there we go. Wow, that was a long lesson. Okay, but, like I said, oh, I forgot to box those ones. Right, so there are a few different methods that you can use to factor those. Right, just pick the one that you like the most. Okay. But with that being said, that's it for today's lesson. So really, good luck practicing this one. It's gonna need a lot of practicing to get used to it.